Maybe next year we can host something a little less embarrassing. The champagne glass froze halfway to my lips. Around us, soft laughter spread across the ballroom like a slow-moving fire. Not loud enough to be called cruel, just quiet enough to make it worse. My mother stood beside me in the pale blue dress she'd spent 2 months sewing by hand after her old one tore at the sleeve. And my mother-in-law, Vivian Calloway. She stared directly at her, smiling. Like humiliating my mom in front of 300 elite guests was entertainment. Vivian, my husband Ethan whispered under his breath, but he didn't stop her. That was the part that hurt the most. My mother lowered her eyes instantly, clutching the tiny silver gift bag she'd brought for me. I knew exactly what was inside. A handwritten letter, a framed childhood photo, and the bracelet she'd worn for 20 years after my father died. She'd planned to give it to me tonight. Now her hands were shaking so badly the tissue paper crinkled. "Oh, don't look so sensitive," Vivian said loudly. "We're all family here." Another laugh. Someone actually covered their mouth trying not to smile. I felt heat rising into my face. The orchestra kept playing. Waiters kept walking, and somehow that made it feel even crueler. Like my mother's humiliation wasn't even important enough to interrupt dinner. I should have grabbed her hand and walked out right then. I didn't, because 10 minutes later, Vivian would make things worse. And 30 minutes after that, one phone call would destroy the Calloway family forever. The Calloways loved pretending they were old money. That was their favorite performance. Everything about them screamed carefully manufactured wealth. The charity galas, the imported flowers, the fake British accents Vivian used around donors, the constant reminders that I married up, but real old money doesn't spend every second trying to prove it exists. That was something my mother taught me when I was 14 and crying over thrift store shoes. People with real dignity, she'd said while hemming my school skirt at midnight, don't need audiences. I understood what she meant the moment I met Ethan's family, especially Vivian. She had this way of insulting people while smiling warmly enough to confuse everyone in the room. Oh, Claire's mother is so grounded. Her little housekeeping business is adorable. I just think humble people have such charming perspectives, every insult wrapped in silk. And Ethan? At first, he defended me, at first. But after 4 years of marriage, his spine had slowly disappeared whenever his mother entered a room. Tonight was supposed to be different. That's what he promised me in the car. She'll behave, he said, adjusting his tie nervously. I talked to her. I stared out the window. You've said that before. She means well. I almost laughed. People who mean well don't ask if my mother knows which fork to use. That was years ago. She asked it yesterday. Silence. The giant hotel ballroom glowed ahead of us through the rain-soaked windows. Gold lights, valet lines, luxury cars. A massive banner stretched across the entrance. Calloway Foundation Mother's Day Gala. My stomach tightened instantly. Because this wasn't just dinner. This was Vivian's kingdom. And tonight, my mother was walking directly into it. When we arrived, my mom was already standing near the entrance. Alone. Of course she was alone. Women in diamonds brushed past her without a glance. She looked so small, holding her purse with both hands. But when she saw me, she smiled immediately. That smile nearly broke me. Sweetheart, she said softly. I hugged her hard. You look beautiful. No, I don't, she whispered. You do. She smoothed the wrinkles in her dress nervously. I almost didn't come. I pulled back. Why? Before she answered, Vivian appeared. Perfect timing. Because she has common sense, Vivian said lightly. My mother stepped back instantly. Vivian air-kissed my cheek before turning toward her with that same poisonous smile. Oh, Linda, you came after all. Yes, my mother said quietly. Vivian's eyes scanned her dress, the purse, the shoes, every inch of her. Well, she sighed dramatically. I suppose charity begins at home. My chest tightened. Ethan finally stepped in. Mom. What? Vivian laughed. I'm joking. But she wasn't. And everybody nearby knew she wasn't. I could see it in their faces. The uncomfortable smiles, the sideways glances, the pity. My mother pretended not to notice. That somehow hurt even more. Inside the ballroom, the humiliation became subtler, which made it crueler. Vivian introduced my mother to people like she was an amusing side character. This is Claire's mom, Linda. She's very resourceful. She raised Claire all by herself in a tiny little apartment. She still clips coupons. Isn't that precious? Precious. Like she was describing a child or a pet. My mother kept smiling politely through all of it, but I noticed every tiny thing. The way her fingers trembled around her water glass. The way she kept checking whether she was standing in someone's way. The way she apologized every time a waiter passed nearby. She didn't belong here. Not because she wasn't worthy. Because people like Vivian made sure she felt unwelcome. And Ethan? Still silent. Still trapped between cowardice and guilt. Then came dinner. And everything exploded. Vivian stood at the center stage holding a microphone. The ballroom quieted instantly. Tonight, she announced warmly, we celebrate mothers. Applause filled the room. She smiled gracefully, controlled, elegant, like a queen blessing her subjects. I'd especially like to thank the incredible women seated at our family table tonight. More applause. She gestured towards several wealthy women nearby. Then finally, and of course, Linda. A spotlight landed directly on my mother. Oh no, 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 no. My mom froze instantly. People turned toward her table. Vivian smiled wider. Linda's story is truly inspiring. She worked very hard to rise above difficult circumstances. The room went quiet. I felt my heartbeat thudding in my throat. Vivian, Ethan muttered sharply, but she ignored him. She reminds us that with enough determination, anyone can improve themselves. A few awkward claps echoed. My mother's face turned bright red, and then Vivian delivered the line that changed everything. Maybe next year, she laughed lightly, we can host something a little less embarrassing. Silence, pure silence. Even the orchestra stopped. My mother stared downward. I heard someone whisper, did she really just say that? Another guest chuckled nervously, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Enough, I snapped. The entire room turned toward me. Vivian blinked innocently. Claire, don't make a scene. A scene? She humiliated my mother in front of hundreds of people and somehow I was the problem? I stood so quickly my chair scraped loudly across the marble floor. You don't get to disrespect her anymore. Vivian's smile vanished slightly. Sit down. No, guests were openly staring now. Phones subtly appeared beneath tables. People loved disasters when they weren't happening to them. My mother grabbed my wrist gently. Claire, she whispered, please. Her voice cracked. That nearly destroyed me. And then Ethan made the worst mistake of his life. Claire, he said quietly, not here. I turned toward him slowly. Not here? Not here? He was worried about timing. While my mother sat there being humiliated like entertainment, I looked at him and realized something terrifying. He was more afraid of upsetting Vivian than losing me. And for the first time in our marriage, I saw it clearly. The gala should have ended there. It didn't. Because humiliation is addictive for people like Vivian. Once they realize nobody stops them, they escalate. 10 minutes later, dessert arrived. And so did the second attack. A waiter approached our table carrying custom gift boxes for each mother attending the gala. Luxury spa packages, designer perfumes, weekend resort vouchers. Each woman opened hers smiling. Then the waiter reached my mother, paused, looked confused. There's no box for seat 14, he whispered. Seat 14, my mother. The table went silent instantly. Vivian sipped her wine. Oh dear, she said. Administrative oversight. Liar. I knew immediately. She did this intentionally. My mother forced a smile. Oh, that's all right. No, it wasn't. Because every woman at that table suddenly looked at her differently. Like she was the only guest who didn't belong. Again, Vivian leaned closer to another woman and whispered loudly enough for us to hear. Well, these events do have standards. Something inside me snapped. Stop doing this to her. The entire table froze. Vivian set down her wine glass carefully. Excuse me? You heard me, Claire, Ethan warned. I ignored him. You insult her every chance you get because she didn't grow up rich. Vivian laughed softly. Darling, wealth isn't the issue. Then what is? She leaned back slowly. Classes. The table went dead silent. Even Ethan looked shocked. She said it out loud. My mother immediately stood. I think I should go. No, I said. But she was already grabbing her purse. And that's when her phone rang. At first, nobody cared. Just another ringtone inside a crowded ballroom. My mother looked embarrassed immediately. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. She reached into her purse nervously. Vivian rolled her eyes dramatically. But then something strange happened. My mother looked at the caller ID, and her entire face changed. Not fear, not embarrassment, recognition, confusion. Mom? I whispered. She stared at the screen another second before answering quietly. Hello? The room continued buzzing around us, but I noticed something immediately. The hotel manager across the ballroom had suddenly gone pale. He was staring directly at my mother.